the Greg Penn, the Preacher Man, and his sidekick Shannon Jones. Frank discussions of issues affecting the ATL, Fulton County, the state of Georgia, the nation, and around the world. And now, here they are, live and in living color, the team of Jones and Fan, the Preacher Man.
Welcome back, Shannon E. Jones, from his cruises, his trips, his everything, his news reporting, and his babysitting. But welcome back to be here tonight with
Ron and I. IRS ain't looking at this. I wasn't on no cruise. I was fishing on a riverboat.
Well, whatever you was on it. Ron and I held this ship down. We've held this ship down. Now, haven't we, Ron? We've held it down. Ron said about Ron been gone himself, Shannon. He left me too. Ron left me the same week that you left. It was Ron. You were gone. Ron was gone, and I was in here fending for myself, by myself.
You done well.
Now, look at no young guns with me. I didn't have my young guns with me.
But you done well.
To tap into your younger man. You tapped into your Instagram business to keep it going.
Hey man, I'm gonna tell you something. I'm glad that Shannon's back this week, and of course we had a great show last week with Pastor Paul Harvey, and thank him again for just being a great part of our show. We got a lot of comments, and a lot of people viewing, a lot of people talking about what we're doing and what we're saying. It ain't nothing but straight talk, and it's so much going on and so much to talk about. And with all the things that's going on, everything is kind of moving away from Epstein a little bit. A little bit. Now they done shut the country down, right? Now people worry about their checks and all that. So we're not talking about Epstein. Everything now we have called the military, called the military by the order of Donald Trump. Bring all of the military people here to the Pentagon, to the seat of the military. Bring them here, and then give them all instruction that we're going to start now looking at cities and states in our country and start training our military how to defend our country. Man, what is he doing? What is he saying? What is he doing? He's trying to get us in war and have people now coming over here dealing with us because of his foolishness. Man, it's a lot going on. A lot going on. I just want to let's unpack a lot of the stuff that's going on, but let's not leave Epstein out, okay? So what I'm going to do, Shannon, since you have been gone for a minute, just for a minute, I'm going to give you a minute too, but just for a minute, I'm going to let you open up tonight with what you think what's going on, Generation X.
Well, I definitely, Bishop, and it's good to be back with both you and Ron and Miss C. But I definitely believe that on the immediate back burner is the fact that MAGA is still pushing for, on this deep state situation, the release of the Epstein files. And as they are seeking the release of those files, they're very much it is still in play. This plan by the Trump administration to keep tap dancing and keep moving and keep throwing everything at the wall to see what can stick. But not only to see what can stick, throw so much at people that the White House is literally sending out information like a person trying to drink water from a fire hose. They're trying to push back. So we're right not to get off of that, to stay very much, to keep checking in on the Epstein situation. But I think that, I caught up with this guy named Texas Paul, and he's also a podcaster. And I would encourage you guys to check out Texas Paul. He looks like Central Casting Grand Wizard of the KKK. But he breaks down this MAGA stuff, and he cannot stomach Trump and what is happening. And it's good to sometimes look through the lens of someone that goes in the room that can hear when Trump says we can't use these two N words. Sometimes it's good to go into the room where the N word is being used at us to just kind of hear what we're thinking and what's really going on. And he really summed it up that this is a Christian nationalist, white supremacist administration that is running on fear of the browning of this country. It is deeply misogynistic. And this is their moment. And this is their moment. And so we can sit and look at this and critique it, and we should, but we should also be coming up with a plan to respond. And the decisive response should be to make sure that we turn up at the voter box to make sure that this does not happen again in the very near future. And that's every election. That's not just the presidential election. It's showing up for the governor's races. It's showing up from the congressional races that are coming in a few years. We just need to be voting because we're seeing right now not only that elections have consequences, but elections have consequences. And when you put it in the hand of desperate racists, bigots, you see that they will do anything and everything to survive. And so that's what we're saying. I'll let our conversation unravel a bit to talk about all of the stuff that they're throwing at the wall.
Okay, so Ron, I know you got some stuff.
I'm burning. I'm burning up. We got to understand how long this country has been able to put up with fallacies that represent the white nationalist position. The current Republican propaganda for why the government shut down is that the Democrats are trying to extend Affordable Care Act healthcare subsidies to illegal immigrants, which is patently untrue. It is false. There is no element of the ACA or Obamacare that gives direct health care to illegal immigrants. And so, in the name of maintaining a privilege to largely whites only, they deny benefits to all of America just to set this premium that if we have to lie to enforce our position, then most of America is willing to accept that lie to maintain the premium status of whiteness, to maintain the premium status of exclusion. And this is a policy and a cultural standard that has been inflexible going all the way back to enslavement. Let's really understand how much fallacies this country has accepted in the name of white supremacy when enslavement was the largest form of economic prosperity in this country. Then this country accepted the white nationalist position that African Americans were suitable for enslaved labor, that our sloped foreheads and our elongated jaw, large lips, and noses made us adaptable to high labor, high intensive labor practices. And then our lower morality that they attributed to the Hamitic curse, that we were descendants of Ham and put in a position of servitude as a moral and religious punishment for our rejection of the promise of Noah all the way back in biblical days. Then that is why we were still suffering as late as the 17th, 18th, and 19th century. Let's fast forward to the 20th century with HUAC, with the House Un-American Activities Committee, when we were investigating so-called communists and blacklisting many members of opposing political parties to the majority at that time. And they allowed the fallacies that people who supported the Scottsboro Boys were communists or somehow illegitimate Americans simply because they provided a voice, they provided a legal standard, they provided the rights that were guaranteed by the 14th Amendment and by the Constitution to African Americans. This has been a long running tradition in this country to validate any standard that comes from the mainstream white population so they can justify what they need to do to curtail the activities of our government, of corporations, of media, to maintain a premium on whiteness. There is zero legitimacy to this government shutdown. The Republicans who they control the judiciary, they control the Supreme Court, they control both houses of Congress, and they have the executive. And they are out here blaming Democrats who have been unable to advance their agenda for the last 35 years for shutting down the government. It is time for us to stand up clearly against these falsehoods, to reject this mom and pop nonsense that Republicans like the Speaker of the House are giving us, that Donald Trump himself are giving us, and put a premium on the truth. The Bible states very clearly that in the last days, the population will call good evil and evil good. And we are living directly in that time in which people in power are able to manipulate facts. They're able to manipulate data. Again, do you think it is a coincidence that the government is shutting down to prevent the release of labor statistics that are largely going to show that the economy is slowing down under Donald Trump? This is a man who claimed on day one he was going to end the Israeli and Hamas conflict that is raging out of control. He claimed on day one that he was going to end the Russia and Ukraine crisis on day one. This is the same guy who said he was going to stop inflation on day one and bring down grocery prices, bring down egg prices, bring down all the concerns that we as everyday Americans have around our kitchen table. And in actuality, he has exacerbated all those issues. Consumer goods are rising right now. Jobs and employments are falling right now directly to his unconstitutional tariffs, the policies that the Republicans have implemented unilaterally, and instead of assigning direct accountability to these rich white men, we continue to find ways to validate their lies, to validate their cover up. Because again, I will always assert that the main reason, and let's say before I even go about that main reason, let's underline the fact that Congress is still getting paid during this shutdown. That while our air traffic controllers and other FAA employees have to work without pay, Ted Cruz and the rest of these senators and House of Representatives are working for free now. In fact, they're not working, but still getting paid. And they still have government sponsored health care, another right that this Congress consistently denies the American people. And so we have been able, in the name of white supremacy, to deny hallowed rights and benefits of health care, of labor equality, of wage increases, to continue to perpetuate the white nationalist lie that we are under attack. I mean, Donald Trump has sent National Guard troops to Portland, Oregon, again against the direct wishes and the direct communication against local officials. The governor has stated, the governor of Oregon has stated there is zero need for the National Guard to be in Portland. Local officials in Portland are releasing images and understandings that there is nothing going on in Portland that requires National Guard troops to be patrolling on the taxpayer's dime. And so, when are we going to have enough? When are we as American citizens going to say enough is enough? And this is what puts the big tent and multicultural philosophy of the Democrats under the microscope. Because where is the coalition of multinational, multiracial, multi-class groups and alliances that are defeating these right wing, white supremacists and top 1% policies. We continue to come up empty handed. Hakeem Jeffries and Schumer are just coming up with ridiculous catchphrases and slogans to try and embolden the Democrat position, even though they have exhibited zero countermeasures to refrain from falling in line behind this nihilistic agenda of Donald Trump and his MAGA minions. And so at some point, we are going to have to take the black and white stance of holiness or hell. That we're either going to do the right thing for the lost, the left out, the marginalized, the weak, the sick, or the shut in, or we're going to incur the wrath of God Almighty. And that wrath is already taking place in the terms of the political instability that is happening both within our nations, perpetuated by the federal government as the National Guard continues to invade cities throughout our country, and the international political instability we continue to see in Russia and Ukraine and in Israel and the Gaza Strip, as the Israeli army that is principally supplied by the United States is issuing final orders on the Gaza Strip to get all citizens of Palestinian descent to evacuate so that they can assume control of this land. And the situation in Sudan as well continues to deteriorate as we continue to sit on our hands and watch these inept white men run our country into the ground. This is an abomination of the highest sorts, and until Americans take the moral authority to take control of our country back, we are going to continue to slide down this political and economic descent until we're at a point of no return.
Let me stop you right there. You've unpacked a lot, Ron. A couple of things I want to just go back and address. One is when we talk about this military takeover, all these cities, all these states, with a military takeover. We have to really pull back the veil and see what's happening. Donald Trump, he said day one, he said he was going to do this day one. He said he didn't do that. But one thing that he did say he was going to do what day one, he said, I'll be a dictator day one. I'll be a dictator. He's doing that. He's doing that. Now that's one thing he said he was going to do, guys. He's doing it. He's doing it. And how he is working, and Shannon, you and I talked about this before, how he is working is to stay in power is through military might and military power. Because he is taking control of his military army and using the military army to embolden themselves in all these states to get foot ground. He's using now the National Guard, but now he's working to train military people, duty people who are on duty military, sworn military people, not reservists, but sworn military people, bringing them into cities, in the city now throughout the United States. You know, and that we talk about martial law. We talk about martial law. And his plan is we keep talking about voting. But if we allow him to create an atmosphere of martial law, he's going to be the president until from now on. And that's his plan, and that's what he's doing, and people just got to wake up and see what's really going on. He's throwing all of this here and all of that, but he told you, I'm going to be a dictator, and day one, forget the Constitution, I'm going to rewrite the Constitution, day one. I mean, he's doing all of that. That's what he said he was going to do to help at least the lost and the left out. He didn't mean that. That was just to get people to vote for him. But what he did mean, and he is doing, is that he is making himself a dictator or you can call him a king, whatever you want to call him. He has changed the Constitution by using the Supreme Court, because the lower court has overturned and a lot of things he wanted to do, but when he gets to the Supreme Court, then he gets what he needs to be able to continue to violate and do away with the Constitution. And I heard one of the Supreme Court judges say that precedent does not set any laws. Precedent can be changed. Because it can be changed by 5 of them or 6 of them on the Supreme Court. It's stacked. So we got to understand we're in a real climate here, and you talking about morals, being moral. You're absolutely right. And the preachers and the believers, and so, you talked about Texas Paul, but there are preachers that are of other hues that's saying that Donald Trump going to hell. I mean, they're saying that because they see what he's doing is not good for the country. It's not good. It's not in line with what the Word of God says. But yet people continue to act as though everything is all right. But everything ain't all right. It ain't all right. It is not all right. Yes, we need to vote. Yes, we need to do this. But I've said this as ministers. Not only they getting paid, my wife is very upset about that. But she been talking about that all day. How can they still get paid, and then they got people working and they ain't paying them? They got to work, but they ain't getting paid, right? So ain't that slave labor? Ain't that slave labor? Another form of slave labor? I mean, for real, they working and not getting paid. But the congressmen and the senators all of them getting paid, but you got people who are working. They got to work to keep the government going. They say, "Oh, we ain't gonna pay you, but you got to still work." What? That is slave labor. That ain't nothing but a form of slave labor. So let's just be clear of what we see of what's going on, and let's be honest with ourselves and understand that all the organizations that we talked about last week, Ron, that are not standing together in unity, the faith community, the labor community, the nonprofit group community that deal with social justice, they're not standing up, they're not unified together to come together against the ill that this man is perpetrating. I mean, we must come together. We must stand up for the least, the less, the lost, and the left out. Now, that's my spiel for what I'm talking about tonight that I see. That's what I see. When you bring all of the military people, all the generals and lieutenant generals and all those commanders, all the command staff, you bring them to the Pentagon, to say, we want you to now start looking at the enforcing things or in the United States, moving them throughout the United States. That's the beginning of martial law. That is the beginning of martial law. Martial law began with the National Guard, but now he's elevating it to another level. He's elevated to another level, and people better wake up and see and smell the coffee, the roses, whatever. But they better smell it because this is real. But God is not pleased. God is not pleased. And God, the Word teaches us what He's going to do to those who do not look out for the least, the less, the lost, and the left out. But I'm gonna stop right there to give Shannon an opportunity to give his viewpoint on what we've talked about thus far. And Shannon, the floor is yours.
So yeah, we've unpacked a lot, and let's take a moment and let's look at Trump from the macro, not the micro. The first thing that we have to know is that this is not a serious person. He has a serious office. He's been elected to a very serious office, but he's not a serious person, which makes it very dangerous. The first Trump administration had seasoned Republicans, seasoned conservatives of business and government, professionals that could come in and say, Mr. President, he ran off Sessions. He has now put crosshairs on Barr, his first attorney general, who would always try to be the adult in the room. He had his mess with him too, to be sure. But would try to be the adult in the room with someone that he sees and they see is not serious and potentially dangerous, given the fact of everything's happening. Let's go to the UN speech. That speech where the President of the United States of America makes a big deal about an escalator stopping, makes a big deal about a malfunctioning teleprompter, and then goes off script to tell them as a developer that he wanted to put in, he bidded a $500 million contract to renovate the United Nations. I was going to give you the best marble, but you have Tijine, but I was going to give you the best marble. Global leaders with intelligence agencies, with their own national security agencies, with their own defense intelligence agencies, are looking at this man and sizing up this unserious man with a very serious position and seeing how dangerous on the global political scale, how dangerous this person is, and how it can unilaterally throw the axis of international security off of its completely off of its axis. So they're looking at it. Then he calls for, as you all discussed several times tonight, for all of the 1-star to 4-star generals and admirals, all of the commanders, every commander, not just every commander and their top staff, to come to Quantico, Virginia for a sit down. These men got on buses, and women got on buses at 3 o'clock in the morning. Some of them had to fly 40 hours to get here for a meeting that really could have been an email, let alone a simulcast put up on a secure network. Their phones are silenced. They are away from secure communication. These are the men and women who know everything. When Trump says he settled 7 wars, these are the men and women who know everything about everybody and every leader. They know what the president ate for breakfast at 1. They know what Putin ate for breakfast. They know what time he went to bed. They knew if he went to bed with his wife or with his girlfriend. They know everything that's going on. And don't forget that at the White House, the Marines secure the president and they have a law. The Navy feeds the president, and they have a law. The Army takes care of his clothes and all of the stuff around there, and they have a law. The Air Force and Marines come together to take care of his travel and to make sure. So the United States military watches the commander. They know everything about Donald Trump. He was sitting up talking about people that could have said, "Mr. President, why did you wear the yellow underwear today? Why didn't you wear the blue? Mr. President, why didn't you?" These are serious people. And they're sitting in a room or on a bus from 3 o'clock in the morning for 12 hours. These men and women could not check in on secure communication to find out what was happening around the global world, what was happening about potential attacks against the United States of America, potential attacks against allies of the United States, potential attacks. These men and women these were the commanders. These were the ones that had to take an order and call it down. And they're sitting in a room for public relations for a man, a defense secretary or a secretary of war who graduated from Princeton, went to war, but was a platoon leader. This a platoon. That's like an Eagle Scout trying to tell General Andre how to deal with Hurricane Katrina in 2005. It's absolutely ridiculous. An unserious man, but now an unserious man with an unserious administration who completely was connected as his stupid Commerce Secretary Lutnick slipped and said yesterday, when he was the day before yesterday, when he was talking about Epstein and how Epstein was Lutnick's direct next door neighbor, and how he was invited to his home and went to his home with his wife. And they walked around his very beautiful apartment, and in the middle of his apartment was a massage table. And Epstein told Lutnick and his wife that yeah, this is my massage table. And Letnick said, why do you have a massage table in the middle of your dining room, in the middle of your living room? He said, because I get good massages, the best kind. Letnick said he got up with his wife and said, we have to go, and they left. And Lutnick said, because he is the type of man, he made billions of dollars by having tapes, having pictures, and having information on very powerful men, and using that information to gain what it was that he gained. So in August of 2019, he quote unquote hung himself during the Trump administration. And then Virginia Giuffre, the star witness who took down Prince King Charles's brother, Prince Andrew. When the Trump administration comes back in office in 2025, she allegedly commits suicide too. Lutnick said this man has information on powerful men, and he didn't want anything to do with him. He was his next door neighbor. That was the last time that he had ever talked to him, did anything with him, because he didn't want him to have anything on him. He didn't want to come into his world at all. But Trump was completely in his world, went to his place, went to his party, hung out with him, took pictures with him, sent a picture to him for his birthday book, and said that he was at one point his best friend. Now I'm going somewhere, and I'm getting ready to come down from this little mountain or this soapbox. Ron just said that they shut down the government. And in shutting down the government, the Bureau of Labor Statistics was unable to give the report. And Trump comes out and says that not only is the government shut down, not only are workers furloughed, but I'm getting ready to fire several workers. And so all of the departments that the Trump administration, all of the departments that his cronies won't crush, they're getting ready to gut all of those and fire all of these people. And he's doing all of this. And what's hanging in the background? What's hanging in the background is the cards that can bring all of this down. Here, I'm coming off my soapbox, Bishop. I'm coming off my soapbox, Ron. Let me tell you this. Mike Tyson said it this way. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Donald Trump and his administration are speeding to a brick wall. And it's a reason why those United States generals take an oath of office to protect this nation against all enemies, foreign and domestic. For 90 minutes, they were able to size up the Department of Defense secretary. And for 90 minutes, they were able to size up the president of the United States of America. And they know everything. They know all of our threats. They know the hairline trigger. They know how it can end, who could come in, who could take us out, who could eat our lunch. They know all of that, and they know who's in charge. And you better believe that when those men and women got back in their Suburbans to go back to their planes, their aircrafts, to go back to their commands, they were thinking to protect this nation against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. This Trump train is headed it's not headed for where they think it's going. It's getting ready to head into a brick wall, a constitutional collision. And the Democrats had better get this stuff together. And if we weren't on this air, this preacher might change that 5-letter word for a 4. They better get their stuff together.
Well, don't do it.
Be ready for what's getting ready to come down, because this is serious. And the reason why they can play this game, forget posse comitatus, the reason why they can play this game is because the Democrats and the Republicans have been in bed together. They've been playing the same game, and they've been playing the American people. They ain't giving back their checks. They're not saying, Hakeem Jeffries is not saying he will not accept his check tonight, that I will not accept my money. I've not heard the Democrats say we will not take these checks. We do not want to be paid doing this. We want to stand in solidarity with these workers. I have not heard that yet. And so all of them better stop playing games, because this thing right here, Dr. King said, be true to what you put on paper. The paper is getting ready to speak to the nation.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with Ron. I think that what we're saying is very important, very informative information, because I don't, I always say I don't need a Democrat nor a Republican, because I don't see no difference between a Democrat or a Republican. I see millionaire, billionaire. That's what I see, millionaire, billionaire. And they vote they vote their interest. They vote their interest, not the interest of the people, but their own interest. But I'm going to go back to something I said earlier, is that I think we put these people in office. We put them in office, but we do not hold them accountable. That's our fault. That's our fault. Because we do not hold them accountable, because we're up there trying to get crumbs from the rich man table. And we turn our blind eye to whatever they're doing, because we're getting the crumbs from the rich man table. And they throw a few crumbs out there here and a few crumbs out here, give a few nonprofits this and nonprofit. But then you see what they're doing now, they're taking it back, because they know they cut off your lifeline. when they cut out those crumbs, they cut off your lifeline. Because that's how they get you to hush your mouth, hush your mouth, hush your mouth, hush your mouth. Don't say nothing. Just go along. They get along, don't say nothing. It's time for the prophets, not the priests. It's time for the prophets to stand up and speak truth to power. It's time for the prophet to tell the members, whether they're Caucasian, whether they're Asian, whatever their racial persuasion may be. Because God got men and women of all race and all ethnicities, but it's time for the prophets to stand up and speak truth to power. Because what affects one affects all. What affects one affects all. Because God created all of us in his image and in his likeness. And God is going to hold all of us in account for what we didn't do. What we did do and what we didn't do. And we're at this time and this dispensation that we got to stand up and we got to speak loud. We got to get loud. Let people know. Yes, we want you to vote. Yes, we want you to register to vote. But then after you vote, we want you to hold people accountable who you vote for. Maybe they're your Delta sister or your fraternity brother. Maybe you went to high school together. Maybe you went to elementary school together. Whatever you may have done with them as friends or whatever. But if they're not doing what they need to do and are supposed to do, we got to hold them accountable. That's the real truth. That's what this, I say Straight Talk has been, a program that holds people accountable. Even the people who watch the program, who view the program, is hold them accountable. Hold them accountable. Because nothing is going to happen until we make it happen. We have to make it happen. What did Johnson say to King? You make me. You make me. Make me do it. Make me do it. Hold me accountable and make me do it. And it ain't going to happen unless we raise up a nation of people who are going to hold people accountable and not just voting for their friends or their relatives, but supporting people who really about the people's business. It's the people's house, and they tell us we can't even come into the people's house. You got people out here working for peanuts, and the rich are getting rich and the poor is getting poor, and they continue to take away from us. And we sit back and say, well, they ain't doing it to me. They doing it to them. You know that saying, Ron, being a labor person, they ain't doing it to me, they doing it to them. I don't see no difference. They don't bother me. But if they're not bothering you now, guess what? They're going to bother you later, because if you don't put up any resistance, it's the bully mentality. If you don't put up any resistance to the bully is going to take you out. The bully's going to take you out. Because every time the bully see you, go run. Yeah. So,
and
go run.
Was really under attack is the solidarity of all Americans, understanding that this melting pot ideology, that a nation of immigrants, if your descendants are in Europe, or if your descendants are in Africa or Asia or South America, you come to this country and we blend that, we melt that into a new nation. Trump has systematically dismantled that idea, first by attacking what is so-called illegal immigrants. But what we're seeing is that a lot of Americans who are full citizens, people who have been granted asylum by the Supreme Court, appellate courts, and district courts throughout the nation. Mario Guevara here in Georgia, a renowned journalist who has been detailing ICE abuses in the United States for the last 20 years, who has a powerful following amongst many Americans who are concerned about civil liberties. Well, his deportation has just been assured and cleared by the courts now. And so the granting of further and further authority of the courts to continue to racially and culturally target different groups in this country, I think it's just been solidified by the Supreme Court that we can target Americans or target people in this country for speaking Spanish, for having cultural practices that are outside the mainstream that represent Hispanic heritages, all the while this is happening in Hispanic Heritage Month. How much of a contradiction are we going to be able to swallow as Americans? And if we believe in multiculturalism, if we believe that the fabric of this nation dissolves your previous background and creates a new status of citizenship, then we need to see people outside of the affected group stand up and lock arms with every disenfranchised group, with every marginalized group. And that is one of the boundaries that many everyday Americans are afraid to cross for the perceived retribution that they may incur. And that is a legitimate consideration. When we talk about why a lot of Americans may fail to get involved in this political fight, we need to give an understanding that the wage stagnation over the last 70 years in the United States has put most Americans in a position of living check to check. Even if you are middle class or upper middle class, you are still within the margins that if you miss a payroll period, you will be unable to account for any emergency that befalls your household. That just because you may make a certain sum and just because you have elevated yourself to a higher socioeconomic status, that's different than saying you have independence off of the system. And as Donald Trump continues to maximize control over the system, as Donald Trump again has taken an additional step to advertise to 10 universities in this country that if they espouse conservative views, they will get significant grant funding from the federal government, as opposed to espousing liberal views, multiculturalist views, in which Trump has been taking away those funds and taking away the accreditation from universities that do espouse views, regardless if those views are supported by history, regardless if those views are supported by fact and data. Trump is consistently manipulating what a fact is by attaching financial incentives to supporting his viewpoint. and Congress that controls the purse strings, which is their power and their constitutional authority, are sitting around looking haphazard while their constitutional job is being usurped by the president. And so we're at a point in which, yes, we do want to see average Americans take up their bed and walk. We do want to see that. But we have to provide incentives and protections for average Americans to do that. One of the great uh, incentives for African Americans during the height of the civil rights movement to stay in touch and in support of the status quo, even though many of their sisters and brothers were on the picket lines and on the protest lines, African Americans were getting evicted from their homes for participating in voter rights rallies. African Americans were getting fired from their jobs for attempting to vote. And so the very structure of this nation was supporting the hypocrites, was supporting the oppressors. And that is something that we have to give an account to, because it is so easy to say, stand up, lock arms, and join together. But how are we going to console these individuals who do stand up if they are targeted with reprisals, if they're fired from their job, if they're deported? These are real consequences that everyday Americans who lack institutional support, they have to deal with. Trump has been able to stay out of prison for over 30 years, even though he is a serial child molester, a serial rapist, a serial pedophile. He has bankrupted multiple organizations that he has owned, collected insurance money on the back end from those bankruptcies, largely because institutions and organizations have protected him and provided him institutional cover and legitimacy. Well, if a president of the United States needs institutions that are going to support him and protect him from harm and danger, then that underscores the double importance for average Americans to have institutions that will support us before we turn ourselves into targets yelling and screaming on the street for a form of justice that our institutions consistently reject. And so the quality of this nation and the legitimacy of this nation per our institutions is clearly in flux right now. And the evidence continues to show that the institutions that we support that are supposed to provide checks and balances are completely invested in maintaining white supremacy, in advancing the interests of only the wealthy, of sacrificing the political activism of everyday citizens to maintain a status quo where our children are defiled, where our wages continue to decrease, while so many Americans continue to fight for health care, fight for worker protections and job protections. And so let's give a voice to the dangerous position average Americans are facing when we ask them to stand up. It I mean, when Jesus himself said to his father, remove this cup from me. That's what Jesus said. It's hard to bear the brunt of sacrifice. It's hard to bear the brunt of truth and justice when you are. Jesus felt that he was out there by himself, that his own disciples, in the moment of truth, when Roman soldiers were coming for him, they fell asleep. These are his boys. These are the people who travel with his allies. And Jesus could not even depend on them when he needed them the most. And so I extend sympathy and understanding to the American people for why it may be a little bit of a reservation for why we are not running out there against this white nationalist machine, because they know how to use a chainsaw. And the Democrats do not know how to use a chainsaw. We do not know how to apply political and economic consequences for opposing common sense justice and for taking from the weak and giving to the rich. We have yet to apply any sort of political consequence at any point in this history of this nation. And that deserves a voice in understanding why we continue to see Donald Trump running roughshod over the checks and balances and separation of powers that's supposed to be our chief protection against tyranny.
Well, Ron, listen. We got to wrap it up because we about at an hour now. We about at an hour.
We at an hour already, Bishop.
Yes, sir. Already. Yeah, but we'll pick up on this next week because it's so much to be said. It's so much to be done. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen, but we have to lend the voice to the voiceless and be the voice for the voiceless and let people marinate on what is it that I can do? How can I help? What position can I take? What role can I take in this? But everybody can do something. Everybody can do something. And that's a fact. They can do something. And you know what? If you're afraid, then I understand fear. But God has not given us the spirit of fear, those of us who are believers, but power and a sound mind. So we can't walk in fear. We can't walk in fear. We have to walk knowing that if we stand together, if we stand united, if we stand up for what is right, he will prevail. He will prevail, and he will deliver us from what we're going through. Well, brothers and sisters, until next week, this has been Nothing But Straight Talk with yours through the great fan, the preacher man, and Shannon Jones and Ronald Allen, and I guess Miss C was around here somewhere. But anyway, thank you guys for tonight being on Straight Talk as always, because this ain't been nothing but what, guys? Straight Talk.
Want to be a guest on Straight Talk? Email Greg Van at FANN922@Comcast.net or call 404-308-0795. Join us again for another episode of Straight Talk with Shannon Jones and Greg Van, the Preacher Man.